Hey everybody, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Excited about today's show because I got Jordan Hicks joining me in the Hang on Ron Johnson segment, former Vikings linebacker, and he has a ton to talk about, not only this current Vikings team, but he's got a lot of quarterback conundrums around the NFL that he's tied to with the Vikings, the Browns, and so I'll get his take on injury to Carson Wentz, and then what can J.J. McCarthy bring to this team moving forward? We'll do all that and much more coming up next on the Ron Johnson Show.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. Now the Ron Johnson Show. On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. He's played with them, hung out with them, and grown up with all the big names in Minnesota sports. They're hanging out with Ron Johnson. It's the Ron Johnson Show on the Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. And it starts now.
Hey, good people, it's a beautiful Tuesday, and yeah, I got my baseball because I'm still kind of vibing off that Game 7, Dodgers, Blue Jays. I mean, could you have scripted that any better? But we'll talk about that in the Daily 3. But I want everybody to know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Just download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And remember, really simple, right? You just go in, you bet a guaranteed bet, and I've given you guys a couple. By the way, the NFL upsets have been happening a lot in the past 2 weeks. But stick with me on this college football. There's some guarantees in there, and one of them is OHIO, and the other one is Indiana. Who would have thought Indiana football would be a lock? But make sure you guys go. You can bet on Indiana, Ohio State. That's a lock, right? $5 that wins you $300 in bonus bets, and then you can have some fun with some parlays out there. Put $50 on a nice little 10-team Big Ten parlay. The Big Ten is pretty predictable. Think you can figure it out with those 10 teams, 5 games. Check it out. But again, I'm Ron Johnson. This is the Ron Johnson Show on a beautiful Tuesday in November. I can't believe I'm saying that. A beautiful Tuesday in November. And as I bring my co-host into the show, Sam Ekstrom, I want to make sure everybody knows you can get all of our content on YouTube. So when I talk about the little baseball in my hand, people, one, a little bit of a stress ball. So when I get nervous, something to do, nobody can see me doing it, right? Hands big enough where I can cover it. But it still reminds me, I need to get a softball too, because I know my daughter's probably like, Dad, I don't even play baseball. So I got to get me a softball because I know during her games I get a little nervous, and maybe this will keep me from yelling and screaming. Because, Sam, before we get into this football talk, man, and I thought about this in the World Series, it's kind of weird because as a parent, I've seen some jokes out there about parents, on some of these softball, baseball youth pages saying there's been a protest. They want to see Mookie Betts' birth certificate because they don't believe he's young enough to be playing in this game. Somebody else said they want to look at Shohei Ohtani and has he been on this team the whole season? Because that happens in youth sports where all of a sudden, right when it's time for the championship, this other kid shows up and hits 3 home runs, and everybody's like, wait. Show me where this guy's on your roster. And they're like, he's right here. He was on my roster. I had him on my roster the whole season. He just hasn't played for us, which is one of the reasons I hate to say it. Why the Little League World Series now, I Googled it, Sam. They have a rule that the girls on your team, this is softball, I'm guessing baseball same, they have to have played in 30% of your games. I mean, if you play 30 games, they've had to play 10 games with you in order to be able to be eligible for the Little League World Series, because some of these teams have 20-plus girls on their roster because they're just fill-in players, hey, just show. And then when it's time to go to win it all, hey, we need her. So, there's some jokes about that. So I've had fun watching parents joke about these pro baseball parents probably questioning all kinds of stuff. But Sam, but also people too, make sure you guys know, if you want endless Vikings talk, make sure you subscribe to YouTube so you can see all the little gimmicks like this. Tinfoil hats come out. Who knows what's going to show up? I don't even know what I'm going to do Thursday. I got to come up with something Thursday because the Gophers are on a bye, but the Vikings are playing my Ravens. So maybe I got some Ravens stuff some pull out for the Thursday show. Because I am a former Raven, so I look forward to when those guys come to town, because the trainers, the doctors, the security, Chad Steele, a lot of people are still working there back when I played in 2002 to 2004. So it's always fun when those guys come to town. Unfortunately, back when years ago when I did the show, Terrell Suggs and I got to catch up, and but no, there's not a lot of guys. I don't think there's anybody actually that played when I played, like Ed Reed and all those guys. So everybody's done. Bart Scott, Ray Lewis, everybody's done now. So there's a whole new band. But I got my guy Rashad Bateman coming back to Minneapolis, so that's going to be fun. I'm going to have to reach out to him, maybe see if I can catch him either at the hotel or, pre-game or something. If he'll give me 5-10 minutes in the tunnel with Rashad Bateman, we'll see if we can pull that one off. But Sam, Minnesota Vikings win. Gophers win. It was a beautiful sports weekend for Minnesota football fans. Wisconsin was on a bye, but we know if they played, they would have lost. But the Packers lost to the Panthers, Sam, and even the Panthers got away with one thrust, two thrusts, but then there was a flag. And if you're not watching on YouTube, people, you're missing out on the thrust.
Thrusting. Yep.
The flag, if you look at it too, I think if one person would have thrust twice, they would have let it go, but it was a group thrust, which is more than two thrusts because the offensive lineman thrusted. That's what people were there breaking this down. Said, look at the offensive lineman. Two of those guys are thrusting two, which adds to the total thrust count. So they went above two. Because even the coach made a joke like Key and Peele, like they've got to reach out to them because that's not true. And Keegan, he reached out.
Michael Key. Yep.
Keegan Michael Key. I hate his name. It's such a weird name. But Keegan Michael Key. I always get it wrong. I feel like it should be like Keegan Peele, but Keegan Michael Key. He reached out as well with a video saying he apologizes and now he's going to have to redo the skit because it's not two pumps. It's not the number of pumps by one person. It's the team pumps. So now we're in team pump gate where we got to figure out, can one guy pump twice and that's enough? Because Aaron Rodgers did it, remember? And he didn't get a flag. Aaron Rodgers did the two pumps and he didn't get a flag, but there was nobody else pumping with him. So this is the era of football we're in. We're in pump gate. So now we got to figure out how many pumps. But Sam, the Minnesota Vikings, went out and absolutely dominated. Like, it's funny watching all the tweeters, all the so-called analysts. Everybody has an idea. And the biggest thing was, man, physicality. I'm going to bring it down to physicality with this Minnesota Vikings team, Sam. They were extremely physical. They were extremely blunt with what they were trying to do, which is we're going to put our face mask through your face mask, and we're going to make your life a living heck. And they went out there and absolutely made the Lions offensive line, made the Lions running backs. We had to pick them up in blitz protection. They made it absolutely impossible to get comfortable, Sam. But, kind of going back to that, looking at the Vikings win over the Lions, one, we know it happened. But does that now kind of vault them? Like, because I'm breaking down the film today. As soon as we're done with the show today, Sam, I'm breaking down the Ravens film. And when you think about that, right, it's a different quarterback. Like, you can't just all out get after him because like how Jared Goff kind of shrunk and then maybe he got away and he just made like one. Lamar Jackson doesn't shrink. If he gets out of there, he's gone. He's gone for 15, 20 yards a pop. So you have to, one, spy. Two, we don't need Blake Cashman trying to chase Lamar Jackson down and that hamstring, is it really ready to get up back to 20 miles an hour?
Right. He was chasing Caleb. That's how he popped it in the first place.
Exactly. So do we really want him chasing down Lamar Jackson? So can Brian Flores live off of the blitz with a guy like Lamar Jackson, or is this a game? Because again, Lamar Jackson's always been knocked for is he a passer or whatever? Can they really get away with that? But that's my thought. Like, is this Lions game the moving forward Vikings team with J.J. McCarthy, the way he was efficient? He did miss some throws, but can that same formula defensively, offensively, I think it's going to work, but defensively, can that work stopping Lamar Jackson?
I don't know if the same plan works. I think that the mindset should translate. The physicality, the interior rush. We're gonna beat you up at the line of scrimmage. That should translate. That I hope it does. I don't think you can rush Jackson up the middle over and over and over again and expect to have success. If you bounce him to the outside and don't contain the edge, good luck. Bye-bye, Lamar. He is going to toast you to the edge. I don't know if there is a good plan. I don't know if anybody's come up with a plan to try to keep that guy in the pocket and unable to slip away. I mean, you're right. You got to have this might be an Ivan Pace game, Ron. Somebody that can run with Lamar, or at least get close. That's probably Ivan Pace in this game. So it might not. Eric Wilson was the game MVP, some would say. He might not get as much run in this next one. It might be more Ivan Pace because they need speed on the field to catch up to that dude.
Because the crazy thing is, like, the Vikings are already underdogs in this game, right? Out the gate, Lamar Jackson's healthy. So the Vikings, right away, you're back to being the underdog. I think if it was going to be Cooper Rush or Tyler Huntley, they might probably give the edge to the Vikings and say, you know what, Cooper Rush, this Tyler Huntley, this defense now can handle that. But Lamar Jackson passing yards, nothing, glamorous. He has been hurt. We know that. He's only played in 5 games, but 1,000 yards in 5 games. So not a huge, but 215, 250 yards, that's kind of he hovers around there, but he gets you with his legs. When you look at the rushing, now again, 160 yards in 5 games. He hasn't really had a chance to get going because those games were, Derrick Henry, everybody's like, man, this guy still has it. He didn't have Lamar Jackson, almost 700 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns, but the big thing too, 5 bigs, as far as like explosive plays and 6 touchdowns. So when you think about Rashad Bateman, right? And I go to my guy, Rashad Bateman, I got to do it. He's not like the quote unquote best guy out there, but his 2 touchdowns, when you watch him, he's sneaky in that kind of zone hole where when Lamar Jackson moves, he gets forgotten about. Zay Flowers is kind of their guy. We know that's going to be their big play guy, take the top off. Mark Andrews as well at tight end. We know he's going to be, a red zone threat. I've broken that down the past couple of weeks. Every time, it looks like the Ravens tend to play the teams the Vikings are about to play. So I've been using a lot of Ravens offensive stuff already. Like I've already broke down a lot of the corner routes. Like I'm actually going to replay a couple plays that I've already used because one, I didn't dive into. I think I did 6 Ravens plays already this season because the Ravens have played the Browns. The Ravens have played, I think, the Lions, if I'm not mistaken. And so when you look at, they did that because I just broke them down this week. And so when you look at those plays, the Ravens use a lot of motion. They use a lot of shifting. They want to catch you off guard. They use a lot of like Derrick Henry, because that's the other thing I broke down is Derrick Henry is an absolute monster of a human being. And they use the receivers as a lead blocker at times. And then what they do is the minute you think he's motioning inside to be a lead blocker, just to not make a big hit, just to kind of seal off the linebacker and get in his way, just kind of say, hey, you got to run through me and you still got to try to make a tackle, a one-arm tackle on this guy. Good luck. The Vikings linebackers have to have that same put my face through your face mentality this week because when those receivers motion in, you are allowed to run through their face if you think it's a run. And then where they get you is when you don't bother them because you're trying to get out their way because you don't want them to block you, they ended up releasing through the zone and then running a corner route. And I think they did like 3 touchdowns that way. It was the same play by the Ravens 3 different ways, like the same exact play. They did it 3 different ways, and I broke this down. And so this is where Brian Flores, I'm kind of going to recycle some of my play breakdown. I'm going to change it up because I've used them like in different weeks. But I've noticed that. And so that's where Brian Flores, like the other thing too is Lamar Jackson, when he does the play action fake, his rollout is not just I'm throwing the ball. His rollout is I'm going to stay on the move. And if everybody's covered, I'm gone. And that's the scary thing about Lamar Jackson and his team. And so can Brian Flores do the same thing? No, I think you're right, Sam. It has to be like an Ivan Pace type of game. It has to be an Ivan Pace type of like spy maybe potentially because he is fast. I don't know how fast he is compared to Lamar Jackson, but you do need an Ivan Pace out there because Lamar Jackson too, we don't know if he's at 100%. Like they held J.J. McCarthy out for weeks to get him 100. Is Lamar Jackson 100%? Like, is he willing to go out there and run 21 miles an hour? Is he willing to go out there and take a big hit? Or is it just like, look, he's better than what we have. He gives us at least a 5 to 6 yard gain. He understands his offense a little bit better, and his offense was created for him. So we need him in the game. But again, the 3-5 Ravens to be favored over a 4-4 Vikings, it feels very mediocre. Like 2 mediocre. If I were to not tell you the teams, hey, we got a 3-5 team visiting a 4-4 team. I think bottom of the division. I don't think anybody would like care. But when you then put the names to the faces or faces to the names, and you say, whoa, this is the Ravens. This is a healthy Lamar Jackson. This is the Vikings. This is a healthy J.J. McCarthy. I think this is what people were hoping for this week. Like they were hoping for a J.J. McCarthy, Lamar Jackson meetup. Like if it was going to be a Carson Wentz, Tyler Huntley, or Carson Wentz, Cooper Rush game, I think the TV channels would be like, okay, let me see what's on the cooking channel, or let me see what's on the old Ocho. What's going on? Is it? Are they doing Is that cornhole? Let me watch a little cornhole and see what's going. But no, like you got the 2 stars out there. So I think this is the key to having J.J. McCarthy, Lamar Jackson. One question I do want to ask you, Sam, because I'm gonna be at the stadium and I'm gonna try to get a little intel and see if you're the Minnesota Vikings, and I think I know the answer to this, but I want to see what you think.
Okay.
If you're the Minnesota Vikings, home game, first home game in a while. J.J. McCarthy's first home game since I think the first game, the Falcons game maybe is what it was.
Right.
Do you try J.J. McCarthy out there last and let the cheers, or J.J. McCarthy right before Justin Jefferson, or do you let the defense go out there and get their cheers?
Yeah, great question. I think you actually hype up the defense. I think the defense earned that the way they played against Detroit. I think that and I don't know if there's one guy that gets the final cheer. Maybe it's
Harrison Smith.
Cashman?
No, Harrison Smith. Yeah,
maybe he gets
Smith.
the last slot every single home game. He's earned that. But the defense played so well. They played so inspired. Anything to get them fired up to run around for the next 60 minutes and chase Lamar around, they need it. So I'd go defense. I would give them their moment and then hope they can get a couple takeaways, Ron. You know how many interceptions the Vikings are on pace for this year? 6. They got to pick off Lamar a time or two. He's only thrown 1 this year in 5 games. They need a gift. They need a deflected ball. They need a bobbled ball that Metellus snatches away. They need a trapped ball like the Terrion Arnold interception, right? Trapped against Naylor's leg, and he just kind of takes it away for the interception. Vikings need some of that mojo.
Well, the biggest thing when you think about this season, and you brought up a good point. So when you look at the Ravens, right? So offensively, the interception, because you brought the interceptions up, it's tough to get an interception on the Ravens because of Lamar. Like, he doesn't have to force the ball into a tight window. Like, he's able to run and kind of like get going whenever he's ready to get going. Like, he doesn't have to, he's not forcing it out there. And so when you look at like red zone TDs, for instance, right? And that's 25 yards and in, his guy is Mark Andrews. Like, that's the guy he's trying to get to. That's the guy he wants to force the ball to. And not force. He knows he's going to be there. Now, we know as Ravens fans, and people will point out, there are some things that, like, you watch some plays happen, and you look back and you're like, if Mark Andrews just catches this ball, I think it was the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs. Like, if Mark Andrews just catches the ball, they win the game. That's the thing I think that people are most frustrated about. But, you know, right now, Mark Andrews, 75% of his touchdowns come in the 25-yard and in. So he is a guy that they are definitely looking for, that he's a guy that he wants to get to. He's the second most targeted receiver in the red zone. I mean, you got Zay Flowers and him, and that's kind of the go-to. But like yardage, he leads the team in red zone yardage, red zone touchdowns, red zone first downs. He's the guy. Like, he's the guy that Lamar Jackson is absolutely trying to go for. And again, that's why you brought up Eric Wilson. You know, is how do you cover Mark Andrews? Is it going to be, I think that's my play breakdown this week, is Mark Andrews in the red zone. Like, do you cover him with Josh Metellus? Do you cover him with Ivan Pace, which I think Ivan Pace is too small, so I would say no right away there. My gut tells me you have to probably go Eric Wilson or Josh Metellus, because I want Cashman getting after the quarterback. But you tell me, how do you handle Mark Andrews in the red zone before we jump over to this? Because speaking of linebackers covering the tight end, we got Jordan Hicks joining us in the Hang Around Johnson segment in just a little bit.
Yeah, Metellus has had his issues this year. He had his issues in that Philadelphia game, notably. Ivan Pace is supposed to be a very good coverage linebacker because of his speed, but he's had issues of confusion, right? Just misdiagnosing the play where he's supposed to be. So it's a great question. I tend to think that Metellus will be on the field because of how his legs are going to be super valuable against the Derrick Henrys, against Lamar Jacksons as well. I think that we see a decent amount of Metellus in this game, trying to mix it up.
And I think Theo Jackson, too. My sneaky favorite to kind of stick with him as well as a longer, because Theo Jackson's tall, he's long, he can cover, he's strong. But Mark Andrews is not going to run by you, but he's going to body you up. He loves that corner route where he can put his body in between you and the ball, and then he's going to just, let it get to his hands and try to pull it into his body and just fall into the end zone. He loves that little shallow route where it's like the mesh and everybody's confused at the play action and he leaks out into the flat. He's wide open, or he comes all the way across and he gets wide open and he stops in the middle. Those are the things where I feel like, if you do want to use Theo Jackson a little bit more, I would use him there, maybe Harrison, and maybe this is a trio of safeties keeping an eye on Mark Jackson or Mark Andrews. I think that's the key into stopping this team. Offensively, we could talk a little bit tomorrow about offensively as well, and on the round table about how do we handle, how does J.J. McCarthy handle this Ravens defense? The best thing is the Ravens defense hasn't looked great. They haven't been the Ravens defense of old that I remember. Like it is a mentality thing. So when guys get injured, when guys get hurt, when things change, you change people out. The defensive mindset changes a little bit. So it'll be very interesting because this Ravens Vikings is always a weird game. No matter when, where, time of year, it's always a weird kind of feeling. Maybe for me because I played for the Ravens and I work for the Vikings, or maybe it's just real. Like it's just weird. You never really have an idea of who can win this game until maybe like the second quarter, and you see like, okay, this team's dominating, or, Lamar Jackson's impossible to stop on third down. Like, I think that's going to be the other key on third down. If the Vikings can force the Ravens into third and longs, third and eights, third and nines, third and 2 and 3, good luck. Cause you got Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, but I'd say third and 8 and 9, because then you take the run out of it and you force Lamar Jackson to be a passer. Now he is going to have they do a pass run option. They always try to set up the pass and give him an option to throw. But removing Derrick Henry from the equation on third down, I think, is the way you have to slow down that offense. But coming up next, we got Jordan Hicks joining us. We're going to have a little bit of a shorter version of the interview, and then we're going to release a longer version later this week as well on Thursday. But, stay tuned for that after a word from our sponsors.
We are brought to you by FanDuel. Today, new customers can bet 5, get 300. That's still the deal. Bet $5, win that bet, get $300 in bonus bets. You can put it on the NFL. You can find a good money line for that $5 bet, get those $300 on the NBA. If you miss the start of the game, your team falls behind, you want to bet the comeback, happens all the time in basketball. Use those live lines to your advantage, or put together a same game parlay for a chance at a huge payout. It's a lot of fun, too, to bet the futures. If you have a futures bet on the NFL, that can lead you along for 3-4 months, and you can have a lot of intrigue there. Maybe it's like the leading receiver in the league. You're crossing your fingers that JSN can hold on to that lead. That'll last you all the way until week 18. Lots of ways to bet, lots of ways to enjoy. FanDuel, it's the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. You can make every moment more at FanDuel or the FanDuel Sportsbook app.
Well, now it's time for the Hanging Ron Johnson segment, and I got a guy played linebacker for the Minnesota Vikings, but that's where not a lot of people know him. I mean, he's been 10 years in the NFL. Philadelphia Eagles, so sorry, Vikings fans, it's just hold on, relax. I know he's an Eagles guy, but Super Bowl champion, Arizona Cardinal, Cleveland Browns. So, I mean, when we're talking quarterbacks, I feel like every team other than the Eagles, Jordan Hicks can talk about. I mean, even Texas, we can talk quarterback controversy. But Jordan Hicks, NFL linebacker, former NFL linebacker after 10 years, is now joining me on the Hanging Ron Johnson segment. Jordan, man, when you came to the Minnesota Vikings, my job as an analyst, as the pregame show host and all that stuff, and postgame on K-Fan Radio and all that, is to kind of look into players, man. And the one thing about you, if you're not a true football fan, a lot of people don't understand even like what linebackers do if their name is not Ray Lewis. I play for the Baltimore Ravens, so I play with Ray Lewis, and a lot of people always want to go there with linebackers, man. But you're a guy that is like playing 10 years I only played 3 years. So playing 10 years in the NFL, man, I know how awesome that is, how much hard work that takes. But when you look at that, being a part of an organization that everybody says it doesn't last long, you were able to last 10 years, man. What do you attribute to that?
Yeah. First, appreciate you having me on. I'll tell you what, it's a pleasure to be here. But I attribute it to, first and foremost, staying healthy, right? Mm-hmm. Early on in my career, I got hurt a lot. tore my Achilles, tore my pec my first year, right? I had some injuries there, and my career could have gone one or two ways. I could have fizzled out, been the injury prone guy that nobody trusted and wanted to get out, or did what I did and took ownership, got healthy, made sure I took care of my body, became a pro, right? So first and foremost is the ability to stay healthy, stay on the field, and then involved. I think it's being able to adapt in today's game, right? When I was in college at UT, it was a lot more. I was accustomed to the spread offense, being in the Big 12, going against Texas Tech and all these air raid offenses. But you get to the NFL now, you got some back sets, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You got to be able to cover on third down as a linebacker nowadays. So having the ability to, really be malleable and just adjust to the responsibilities that were being asked of me, allowed me to play all three downs basically for my entire career. So it's a big adjustment coming to the NFL. It's playing linebacker in the NFL is one of a kind. It's special.
And you went to Texas, so there's a lot of Texas versus Oklahoma stuff. There's a lot of just Texas football when you go back to USC. Like Texas football, it's a storied program. But right now, so let's dig into you're an alumni because, I'm a Gopher. So I'm watching my Gophers with a freshman quarterback or second year redshirt freshman quarterback kind of finding his way. And your guy is all over the place, Arch Manning. As an alumni, when you see the highs and lows, man, of a young quarterback, one, have you gotten a chance to go back to a Texas game? Because I saw you at the Vikings game, so I know you're kind of making your rounds, getting around the games. Have you gone back to a Texas game? And then if so, what would you tell a guy like Arch Manning that's in the spotlight, but now finding, it's not always great in the spotlight?
Yeah, been back to a Texas game yet. The plan was to actually go this weekend. They play Vandy, big one. Obviously, never thought a Vandy game would be a big one, but obviously they've got a lot of hype behind them right now. But I think we're going to end up making it out to the Texas A&M game instead. Okay. So haven't been back, but as a playing 10 years in the NFL, you see every possible situation that a player can go through. Right? I personally, went through a situation where we drafted a young kid. I get a call the next day after the draft in Arizona from a GM saying, "Look, you are no longer our starter." Coming off of 130, 40 tackle season, all this stuff. Hey, you're no longer our starter. This rookie who has never even practiced a down in the NFL is going to be our starter, right? You go through these scenarios and you see the pressure and the mentality that it takes to last in this game. And it's just part of the story, right? Guys like Arch obviously have a huge hype behind him, right? And that's why the University of Texas was AP number one before the season because of his hype. But part of the story that you have to see through a different lens is the fact that tough times are going to come, and that's just part of the game, 100%. That tough times come. How do you respond, right? How do you respond? How do you stay committed to the process? Not get too high, not get too low, but stay poised through it all. And, again, he is as hyped of a player as I've ever seen come through the University of Texas. And I think he's handling it well. I think Coach Sark is trying to figure him out. I think they're trying to figure out their identity on offense. It sucks to see the struggle. The defense is keeping us in games and pulling it out. But you just hope, you hope that he's able to mentally stay strong, that he's able to mentally handle it. And you think you got to think he will because of, his pedigree that he comes from. So.
And you were part of, jumping to the NFL, early on, your success at Texas, you go to the NFL, to the Eagles. But early on, you reached the pinnacle. You were able to win a Super Bowl against the Patriots, so you were part of one of the most storied, and it was in Minnesota, so kind of really ironic because your Eagles fans, man, they weren't nice to Vikings fans. I'm pretty sure you saw all the social media. So when you kind of got the news, okay, Cardinals, and then you're back to the Vikings, Like, did you remember that? Like, one, Vikings fans comment any of those stories, or like Vikings fans getting beat up by Philly fans? Like, did you know anything about any of that when you were an Eagles player?
Yeah, you hear all those stories for sure. You know, when you're in Philly, man, you realize real quick how rough it is out there, right? And then you leave and you're like, dang, I kind of missed that roughness, you know, like you were part of that. But yeah, no, walking in, I remember the first time I walked in the locker rooms, we actually had the home locker room at the stadium. And I remember walking in there for the first time, you know, and remembering that the last time I was in there, you know, we were popping champagne bottles and, you know, smoking cigars and jamming Meat Mill in the locker room, right? And just you know, feeling that sense of accomplishment that everybody's trying to feel. So it was an interesting moment for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, that was literally, I think it took over social media for a good 2 weeks. One, the Vikings were done. You guys were still playing. And then the fact that Philly fans not only beat up Vikings fans, not all of them, we know there's a handful, they made the trip to Minneapolis. And so everybody was just like, really? Really? Like, we got to deal with these people here now. And then, you know, we've seen it now, Kevin Hart and so on and so forth. But I was going to say that, like, we're like, was Gilly and all that, were they in the locker room back when you were there? Like, or was this kind of new for Gilly the Kid and Kevin Hart and all those guys? I know Kevin Hart was around, but like Gilly the Kid, is like, were they in the locker room too when you were there?
Gilly was not around when I was there, but Kevin was. Yeah, he was always around during that time. So we didn't have a ton of stars, I don't think. Bradley Cooper was always in the stands. Mike Trout was always in the stands.
Okay.
But outside of that, yeah, I don't really remember people in the locker room like that.
And so let's fast forward, because you mentioned injuries, man, and I want to talk about one. You had a leg injury with the Vikings, right? And so a lot of times, like you said, people, because this could be the end. Like, is this the end? Is this like, is it detrimental to my life? Like, can I come back and play football? Like, walk us through that mindset, man, of like, it could be really, really bad. It could be season ending. It could be, you know, life ending, or it could be nothing, but I got to go through all this and figure out if I still want to play football.
Yeah. I think life in general is about how you respond to hardship, right? And so in that moment, right, people don't know I had compartment syndrome, acute, basically injury to my shin. It swells, the swelling can't go anywhere, so it just builds up in your leg. It can build up so much where people can lose their legs and do all these, you know, it's crazy. Don't look it up on the internet because the pictures are gruesome, right? So it was wild. But when you're in that moment, you know, and you're going through it, you don't really have, you have one or two choices. Again, you know, you could choose to respond in the right way and fight through it and be one of those guys that, you know, it's part of your story, or you can choose to let it define you and you know, kind of sulk in the moment. And so the only way I know is to fight through it. And that's what I did. I had a goal of coming back after a week, which was 5 weeks later. And that's what I did. You know, they sewed it up. Muscle was back intact. I was fine. And I played that next game versus Detroit. And so when you go through it, there's a lot of stories that people and fans don't know about NFL players and what we have to go through during a week-to-week process just to get to Sunday, right? Not even to get over an injury, but, you know, just to get to Sunday. And yeah, that's one of many stories that I got. Obviously, one that was defining in the sense of how serious it could have been. But, you know, there's so many stories that every guy has that is playing this game.
And a lot of people don't know this. So, like, you know, I was kind of similar. My second year, I think, or third year, I can't remember, but I had a PCL. So my PCL, my meniscus kind of, you know, a little issue. And so as I was like 24 at the time. I had two veteran receivers that at the time I felt like they were in their 40s, but I think they were like 36, 37. Marcus Robinson, who was a Bear, and then Frank, I forgot Frank's last name, but Frank played for the Cardinals actually, and he came to the Ravens. And so being one of the younger guys, they're like, hey, can you get to the bye week so we can, you know, we don't have to bring in somebody else. So I went like 9 weeks on a torn meniscus, played through it. And I look back on it, I kind of wish, one, I'm like, I wish I had done it and gotten surgery sooner? Because I see JJ McCarthy do it, get the surgery right away, no long-term issues, whereas I had to deal with lingering, different things. And so when I hear about Carson Wentz in the shoulder and the labrum and, just gritting it out, not his throwing shoulder, so, hey, you can't hurt it any worse. Explain that to man, because people don't understand that. Like, explain that, because your conversation, you with your leg, I'm pretty sure Carson was having the same conversations with the trainers and then the head coach and then your agent, because your agent and your representation has to kind of give you a heads up too. Like, hey, this is how you got to weigh the options. What does that look like for a player like Carson Wentz, who clearly is in pain, clearly could be out that week, but the coach and the team is like, hey, if you can go, we'll take you because we want to keep our young quarterback like 100% so he can get to 100% before he has to play again.
Yeah, there's a balance, right? There's definitely a balance. I know you put yourself in Carson's shoes, right? And he's trying to prove so much out there this year. This is such a big year and defining moment in his career, and he's got an opportunity, with KO and an offense and defense and the history of the past few years of this team being together, right? Like when you're having those discussions, it's like, I'm not missing this opportunity. I got to make of the opportunity I have right now, because I don't know when JJ is going to come back and how everything's going to play out. Like if I got the opportunity to be on the field with this team, I'm going to do it, right? And as painful and as tough as that's got to be, right? Like that's the mind you past your limit, right? And that's what you respect. I respect it so much because you see every single drive he comes off, right? And he's in pain. He's trying to push through, and it's got to affect your play at some point. It affects your mind at some point. Probably takes your focus off of being in the moment of the game. But hey, man, like football is not an easy sport, and everybody's hurt at some point. And the grown ones are the ones who can get out there and do it at a high level while they're still in pain.
And the Eagles, they're good. We know Jalen Hurts. The Cardinals, I think they found their quarterback, Kyler Murray, but there's always question marks there with him and his height and playing video games and all that. But the Minnesota Vikings and the Cleveland Browns are kind of in the similar quarterback conundrum. When you look at Cleveland, same thing. Like they have two rookie quarterbacks as well. So the Vikings have JJ McCarthy and Max Brosmer. JJ's not a rookie, but pretty much a rookie. And then you got Shedeur Sanders and you got Dylan Gabriel. And when you see the same thing with the Browns, honestly, as a player, because again, you're closer to the game than I am. Like you were more recent. I think because how old were you in 2007?
07. Shoot.
Were you born?
Yeah, come on, man. I was born in '92, so what would that make me? 15?
Okay, yeah. So when I was playing, you were old enough to walk around, almost driving.
Yeah.
So I don't feel that old. Like when I interview college players now, and some of these freshmen, it's so funny because I'll be like, yeah, man, and I went to Ohio State and we beat Ohio State when they were number 2 in the country, and then I'll say the year, and they're like, whoa, what? 2000? For them, 2000 is like black and white TV, and I'm like, bruh, 2000 was not that long ago. So, it kind of was.
But in the locker room with these dudes, man. When you're in the locker room with these guys, I'm like, I was born in '92. They're like, oh, I was born in '02. You're like, what? what? It's crazy. It's crazy.
Did they bring a walker for you and like some Depends diapers and any of that stuff, or?
They were calling me they were calling me OG. I got all the old nicknames.
Because that's what's so funny about, I think about guys like Joe Flacco, in his 40s. I'm like, he looks tired after every single drive. Like he just looks like he's ready to go home, sit on the couch, put on a nice cardigan sweater, have some hot chocolate by the fire. Like he's doing it because he loves it and it's a lot of money. But you could tell, like after some of those games, he's like, "All right, man, I gotta. Where's my car? I gotta get out of here. You guys are trying to go to the bar because post game, guys are trying to make plans. Like, hey, man, we gonna go out to do this." Joe Flacco's like, "Man, I'm going home. Like, I'm out of here. I am not exactly. I'm not going to no bar with y'all to have some drinks till 1 a.m. But looking at the Browns, man, like as a former player, most recently former player, like honestly, do you think that this Deion Sanders thing is holding Shedeur back, or do you really think that the Browns just have no clue what they want to do with this team?
Man, it's I really think it's the second one.
Okay.
I think the issue, you look at the situation with like Joe Flacco, right?
Yeah.
And Joe was in that system 2 years ago, right? They made it to the playoffs. They come back. He comes back 2 years later and can't even get close to putting up the type of production he was putting up before. And the defense is playing at such a high level that you're like, if the offense could just do a little bit more,
mm-hmm.
they'd be in contention of every single game that they're in. I think the issues are way deeper than just who's the quarterback.
Mm.
I think it's more than that. At this point, you almost, I know everybody's calling to see Shedeur, but I'm almost like, man, let's hold off on seeing Shedeur until the problem's fixed, right? Like until they figure out what's going on, and now he can have an actual fair shot to be evaluated. So, that team, they're still finding their identity offensively, very similar to kind of how I explained it with Texas. Just it's a situation that is not good right now, that you just hope each week you continuously get better, and find a way to just, all right, maybe this week we have, two explosives, right? Because they're not able to generate any explosives. Like, can we get a couple explosives this week to put our offense in a position to score one more time, maybe two more times, right? That's the difference. And a lot of that is just scheming it up, figuring out the identity, figuring out what we're good at, what we're bad at. They're coming into a bye, so hopefully they got some time to figure it out.
Well, yeah. So, the Cleveland Browns, they got to figure it out, but the Minnesota Vikings, like, same thing, quarterback situation, J.J. McCarthy coming back in. You as a linebacker, so you look at Blake Cashman, you look at Eric Wilson. These guys are having to probably carry a lot of water right now as a defense when you think about the offensive production, because the Vikings, just for some numbers, man, the Vikings offense is 26th in the NFL right now for yards gained. They are 26th in run game, which means, 93 yards a game. You know what that means. Clock's not running because they're throwing the ball way too much and they're not productive. So that means the defense is out there. Points scored per game, they are 18th. Now, defensively, Brian Flores is doing what he could do. In the pass game, he's 8th. So he's still doing what he does, getting after the quarterback, exotic blitzes and all this stuff. I've talked to a bunch of guys about that. We've had Harrison Smith. We had Theo Jackson, talked about the safety look. We had Josh Metellus talking about how you guys rock and roll the safeties and do all that stuff. But when you look at this team, right, there's something injury. They had 17 guys hurt, 17 on either IR or out, like not injured, out. Like, that's crazy when you have 17 guys either on IR or out by ESPN's little, O's and X's, and they tell us right before the game. And I started going down the roster and I'm like, this is a lot of guys on IR or out. And so when you think about that, can you blame any of this on so when the offense is not going well, we know it's KOC, but can you really blame that on the coaches? Like, as a player, when you're sitting there, you guys are looking at the offense and you're looking at the number of injuries, like the offensive line had 3 out of 5 starters hurt in a game. When you think about that, like, how much of that is just, man, it's just bad luck, or, hey, the coaches maybe should have prepared for this, or maybe we should run the ball more? Like, where do you put that on? Because the fans when they call in post game, they're all like, oh, we got to get rid of KOC, or it's Kwesi's fault for his draft picks. And it's like, these guys are pros getting paid to do it. Oftentimes, you can't just blame the coaches. There might be something fundamentally off with receivers not getting separation, quarterbacks, not seeing the open guy. Because I do a lot of film study for the Vikings on Vikings.com, and every week I kind of look at other teams' red zone. I'm doing the Lions red zone defense this week. And the one thing I've learned is they run a lot of man coverage, and they get beat a lot by crossing routes because the guys get super confused, and the linebackers, there's a ton of Anzalone pointing at the guy like, that's your guy, why are you over here? Like, the Chiefs absolutely murdered them they loaded 4 receivers to one side and then just ran crossing routes. And every single time the Lions, I'm like, at what point are you going to play just 2 and sit back and say, okay, they're crisscrossing us every time. And the Lions are just going to, you know how it is, man, just like Flores. Some coaches want to live and die by their scheme. And the Lions have died, but only twice. But they've died by that scheme because the Ravens killed them with it, the Chiefs killed them with it, and then to start the season, the Packers killed them with it with just crossing routes, crossing guys up, putting the safeties in bad positions. But how much of that can you put on the coach versus the players?
No, I think first off, the people calling for KLC are crazy. That's a wild take. To me, this happens every year. Some of these teams, it happens every year. Look at San Fran. How many times do they start the season, their guys get injured, boom, 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 and then week 16, 15, 16, they are hitting their stride.
Yep.
Right. That's what you got to realize about the NFL's first half of the season is done. There's so much more to be played. You hope you can weather the storm and find a way to put yourself in contention by the end of the season. Like that's the NFL. And you hope, right? You hope that you're able to knock all that out early. First off, you don't want injury, period. But if you're going to have injury, you'd rather have it now than have it going into the playoffs, going into week 15, 16, 17, December football. So to me, I think it's just a matter of understanding and having perspective of like, look, it's been unlucky. We gotta do the best we can with what we have. We gotta, it might take, adjusting the scheme a little bit here and there, running the ball a little bit more, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, you got to try to just weather that storm, push through, and get to a point when you're hitting your stride when it matters the most in November and December.
Well, yeah, Sam, I mean, Jordan Hicks is always great to catch up with former players, but it was cool, seeing him back in the stadium, hearing him talking about being on the road. It's funny, too, Sam, like going to the University of Texas. I cannot believe he hasn't been back to a Texas game. Like, crazy. Oh my goodness, that atmosphere. So I'm looking forward to hearing that story as we'll probably try to catch up with him later in the season as well. Hopefully the Vikings have maybe entered into that 8-4 range, 9-5 range maybe at some point, and they're looking towards a playoff berth potentially. But for that longer extended version of the interview, it's going to come out later this week. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that on Thursday. But now we got the Daily 3 coming up. That's 3 questions about a minute each today. We'll do that after a short pause. Well, now it's time for the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, about a minute each. Take it away, Sam.
We start with Gophers. Haven't had a chance to talk about them yet. It wasn't pretty, but they got the result. An overtime win against Michigan State. Highlighted, Ron, I think, by a last-minute drive executed by Drake Lindsey when they had nothing going for them offensively. Michigan State had all the momentum. They had ripped the energy out of the building. They had popped the bubble. Mm-hmm. And the Gophers go down and tie the game late. They win it in OT. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Drake Lindsey, this is one of those games where the Gophers probably could have won it earlier. So there was a lot of misplays, in my opinion, when you think offensively. Some of the throws that probably should have happened. A lack of players, like Darius Taylor, so on and so forth. Bafame, Ichiboy, having himself a game. But for Drake Lindsey, I've said this time and time again. They've got to find a weapon. Like, he's got to find that one receiver where this is my guy. And maybe he's not on the roster right now. Like, maybe there is a time coming with some of these recruits. You're starting to see PJ Fleck lock down these recruits. I think the next step is highlighting and showcasing Drake Lindsey so that these young receivers or even these transfer portal receivers see, hey, maybe I'm not playing at this school, but I can come to Minnesota right now and be a star with Drake Lindsey. Because when you look at Gopher basketball, Sam, I think they have one guy that played last night or the other night. I think it was last night. That was on the team last year. Like, literally the entire team is new, and Nico Medved made a switch. So I would not be surprised because, Lamecki Brockton is leaving if they can find another receiver to come into this group. But, beating Michigan State is a team you're supposed to beat. So I'm glad people didn't rush the field and all that stuff because Michigan State has a storied history and a name that you're like, oh, man, they beat Michigan State. But Michigan State's not the Michigan State of old. I don't care what people say. Oh, they only won by a little bit. Doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. You won the game, and that was the key for this one, in my opinion, was they won the game, Sam. I don't know what you got out of it.
Yeah, I mean, again, you needed to win. You needed to win for your own credibility and to give yourself some momentum, some feel-good vibes heading into the bye. And now you have, your other biggest test of the year. You go to Oregon. They have not conducted themselves well on the road this year against tough teams. Iowa and Ohio State went terribly wrong. This is, again, it's going to be a big chance for them to show something, even if they don't win. And then you've got Northwestern and Wisconsin to finish it out. So you're not going to be in a Big Ten championship this year. You know, you're headed for probably an 8-win bowl game, but you have a chance to really make a huge statement if you can play with Oregon. So we're circling November 14th, Friday night in Eugene. Game 7, Ron, you wanted to talk about this. It was insane. The emotions, the ups and downs. I feel terrible for Toronto fans as the Dodgers steal it in 11 innings. What'd you think of that one?
Yeah, you know, the whole series, like, it was really, like, people could say stuff is scripted. You can say whatever you want. Like, umpires are not calling strikes because they want the game, you know, to make sure the pitch is going to be the pitch the guy's looking for. You know, it's all scripted. Hey, look, whatever you want to say, the fact that, like, the center fielder that came in and made that huge catch had not been playing, and he comes in and then makes the biggest catch of, like, that game. Like, that, if he doesn't go there, the angle that the left fielder was taking, I don't know. I mean, now maybe he makes that catch, but it would have been a tough angle because it looked like he kind of overran it. Like, as he's coming this way, it was coming like over his head this way. So that's why the center fielder took it. And it is the center fielder's ball, and they put him in there for a reason. He's fast, he can cover ground, and it worked. Like, literally, when coaches make changes like that and it works, that's when you know, like, okay, this is our game. But yeah, like, Toronto was, I mean, maybe if the guy doesn't slide at home plate, he beats it, because that was like an inch. It was an inch because the catcher's foot came up to catch it and came right back down right in time. Like, if he had been a little bit further, a little bit to the right, that's even the throw was perfect because it allowed the catcher to get his foot right back down. But maybe if he runs through and doesn't slide that 10th of a second, maybe he's safe and Toronto has himself a championship. But, you know, it is what it is. The Dodgers have won it again. And Shohei Ohtani is just showing the world, like, man, I am as good as I say I am. Like, he is an absolute beast. But I think, you know, for baseball to be such a long season, and I'm not going to lie, I check out, like, after first couple, like, I think it was 20 games in, I tweeted that the Twin season was over, and people are like, you're crazy. They're leading the da-da-da. I'm like, just watch the games. Like, it's going to come apart. And it came apart. And so that's why baseball is just too long. I think baseball should be 60 to 80, and then the playoffs should maybe be a little bit more vast, more like basketball playoffs, like give them more playoff games, and put more teams in the playoffs maybe, and then make it more meaningful. Like, 162 games, in my opinion, is just too much. But this is why October is such a great, you know, month, because this is when baseball, to me, and I think to a lot of fans, gets important. I don't know your thoughts on that one.
We had some really unbelievable winner-take-all games in these playoffs. You know, we had a Yankees-Red Sox Game 3 in the wild card. Then we had Tigers and Mariners with an extra inning epic in Game 5 of the ALDS. We had the Blue Jays and the Mariners Game 7 of the ALCS, and then we had Game 7 of the World Series. So those are the games you remember. Those are the games that the most people watch and the most people you know, are going to take into the future in their memory banks. I'm never going to forget that Game 7. Just the sheer number of clutch defensive plays, the clutch swings by the Dodgers to win it. Gut-wrenching for Toronto, but that's why sports is great, is because there's so much at stake, and you kind of feel it viscerally for that fan base. And it's disheartening, Ron, to know that if the Twins ever do make it to a World Series again, they will find a way to lose in more gut-wrenching fashion than that. I already know the Twins will find a way to lose worse than the Blue Jays did. I got one more for you. I'm going to call an audible here. Okay. Because I wanted to ask you about this. The trade deadline is today in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Do you think the Vikings will make a move?
If they make a move, so yes, I do think they will, but I don't know, like, what move you make, because if they had lost to the Lions, I would say, yeah. I think if they had lost to the Lions, I truly believe they might have tried to see if they could move TJ Hockenson. But also Josh Oliver being hurt doesn't help. Like, you move TJ Hockenson, and what do you get? Because now you have Josh Oliver out. I think TJ Hockenson's performance against the Lions, I mean, even though it wasn't great, but it was a touchdown, maybe gave them a little bit of hope. Okay, like, JJ McCarthy can use him a little bit in the red zone. So now at this point, you know, coming off of a win, it feels different. Coming off of a loss, I think they'd be like, all right, man, we gotta figure this thing out. But coming off of a win, especially against the Lions, who people think are the best team in the NFC or could be the best team in the NFC next to the Eagles, I don't know. I think the Vikings might feel like they need to hold put. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. First, some breaking news: the Ravens have added an edge rusher, Draymond Jones. They've acquired from the Titans, and that could influence Sunday's game, even if he plays like 30 snaps. So keep an eye on that. Vikings wise, I think they need a body at cornerback. Ron, with Jeff Okudah concussed, he's out for a few weeks. Fabian Moreau is your CB3. I'd like to have one more piece. I'd like to have a little bit of depth there. Doesn't have to be super special, but just someone else to be available in case you lose a Byron Murphy or an Isaiah Rodgers. That feels like a priority to me. Maybe a center, maybe a backup center. Right now you're rolling with Blake Brandel. Ryan Kelly is approaching a possible return.
Yeah, he gets back this week. They ramped him in this week, so I don't know. That's 21-day window, so I don't know what that looks like.
Right. So it could be 3 weeks, could be 1 week, could be 2 weeks. We're not sure. But I think that some interior line help could be important.
Yeah, and I think that you're right there. Like the backup center, that makes sense. Like a swing center that can play guard. I could see that being an option for the Minnesota Vikings. But that'll do us for today on the Ron Johnson Show. I want to thank Jordan Hicks for joining us. Make sure you guys check that extended interview out later this week. But remember, when you subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota, you're getting endless Vikings talk. Our squad shows are absolutely phenomenal. So make sure you guys check that out on the free Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast feed, wherever you find your podcast. And also you can find our videos on the Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel. Well, thank you guys and have a great week.